Welcome to Super Movie Brothers. Let's start the show.
This is a podcast on the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.
In there, but it's weird and pissed off, whatever it is.
It isn't Bennett.
God, what was happening to him? If they had more time to finish, it would have looked and sounded and acted just like Bennett's. I don't know what you're saying. There was one of those things out there trying to imitate him.
I think it rips through your clothes when it takes you over. They could be anybody's.
We're not getting out of here alive. And neither's that thing.
How will we make it?
Maybe we should. Nobody trusts anybody now.
Welcome to Super Movie Brothers Movie Cocktail Podcast for John Carpenter's 1982 classic, The Thing. I am your host, Super Movie Brother Dave.
I'm your host, Super Movie Brother Jay.
And of course, for all movie cocktails, we are joined by the two honorary Super Movie Brothers.
My name is Robin. I'm the fan film boy.
I am Mark. That's all I got.
Filmmaker and director extraordinaire.
Extraordinaire.
I guess I'm extraordinaire.
Sure, why not?
Sure, why not?
So tonight we're here to discuss, as I said, The Thing from 1982, directed by John Carpenter, starring Kurt Russell, Keith David, and he's got diabetes, Wilford Brimley. Written by Bill Lancaster with story by John W. Campbell and music by Ennio Morricone. Not John Carpenter, because previously John Carpenter, and for films after this, has always done his own score.
That's true.
But in this case, he really didn't have the time. He actually had nothing to do with the script much either. The script was just kind of one that he read, put in front of him, and didn't like it until he read a specific scene that sold him on the film. And the special effects were surprisingly not done by Stan Winston.
Didn't Stan Winston do like one of the effects?
Absolutely, he did. We'll get into that in facts and trivia as we get there. But first, in all movie cocktail podcasts, we obviously make a drink. So this time, the drink fell to me to make. And of course, I have to make it in theme with the film. So the drink that I decided to make was probably the most famous scene from the film is MacReady's blood test, where he heats up the needle and puts it into the Petri dish to find out whose blood reacts. Sure. So my drink is called MacReady's Blood Test Martini. And I can't help but feel like I missed the mark here, because he's drinking J&B whiskey throughout like the entire movie.
I know.
And I really should have just made a J&B whiskey drink. However, we've done like 3 whiskey drinks already, and we're on our 5th film now. I feel like we've whiskeyed it up a little bit too much.
This really does feel like it's more of a cocktail.
Yeah.
Like we've done a shot,
This
we've
is a
done
proper
some whiskey
cocktail,
drinks.
yeah.
This is a cocktail.
Yeah, this is a proper cocktail. You know, you could see your grandmother going to the casino ordering this thing.
Yeah. It's like on the drinks by the ladies, you know.
But this is
bringing
unique.
around.
This is pretty complex.
Yeah.
Dave put a lot of effort into it. Yeah.
Excuse me, young man. Can I have a MacReady's blood test? So what this drink is, it's 2 ounces of dry gin. We used Bombay. 2 ounces of cranberry juice. 1 ounce of lime juice, fresh lime juice, 1 ounce of grenadine, 2 dashes of orange bitters, and a splash of sweet vermouth. And if you have them available, garnish it with a black olive, because green olives, that's just too clean for the thing, man. The thing, you think of black, you think of oily.
Get dirty.
So you garnish it with the black olives. We'll put pictures up on there, on Twitter for everybody to check out.
And
Facebook. And we'll also put the recipe out there for everybody to try. And don't forget, we're going to be coming out with our own cocktail menu book. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, this will be good enough to make it in there. So let's go around the horn. Let's find out what everybody thinks. Let's start with Jay.
I'll tell you what, everybody knows. I think I said earlier before in our show that I hate gin. It's probably the only spirit that I really just loathe. I don't like the smell of it.
It's funny because I hate vodka, which is why I didn't want to do a vodka martini.
Right. But this doesn't have that kind of scent to it. It doesn't have that kind of gin kind of zing that I normally do not like.
Gin is very dry, and,
Right.
and cocktail cranberry juice is very tart. So they're canceling each other out.
Exactly.
That's why I had to do equal parts, because I had originally tried to do 2 ounces of gin, 1 ounce of cranberry juice. I wasn't getting the color I wanted, and
Sure.
I was getting too much gin.
I really think you just came up with a beautiful marriage of like a lot of different kind of things. The look that we wanted, and also a flavor that really balances each other out pretty well with the tart and sweet and the gin. And
it does come out looking dark red. However, I did cheat a little bit. For our pictures, I did add a little bit of food coloring because I wanted it to really look like blood in the pictures. But
you're too honest, Dave.
I did cheat a little
Behind
bit.
the curtain, people.
So if you guys have a little bit of red or blue streaks in your poop tomorrow, you can blame the food coloring.
Isn't that normal though?
No, that's hemorrhoids. That's hemorrhoids, Mark. Rob, what do you think of it?
I know I've said this a couple of times from a couple of different ones. I like it. I'm enjoying it. But it's not one I could continue to keep drinking.
Okay.
I'm not going to lie. I will enjoy this one, and you know what? I might even have a second.
All right.
But I'm not going to sit all night drinking.
Oh,
this.
no, we're out of jam.
I'll move on to something else, is what I'm saying. It's a good starter.
There you go.
Maybe to move on to something else.
My wife loves them.
But it's really, really good, though. It really is.
It's a lady drink, for sure.
It's a lady drink, but it does have that tart to it. And I guess I'm not a big cranberry drinker. Back home in Australia, we don't drink a lot of cranberry drinks. Right. So that's not a big thing for me. So any drink that I am drinking with cranberries now...
Oh, you mean dry, arid Australia doesn't have cranberry bogs?
We don't bother mixing any of our drinks back home. We just, give me a rum, it's just rum.
The only drinking game you guys play is drink the beer.
Yeah, you just drink it even out of the bottle.
And what do you win? Another beer!
That's more my style, yeah.
Definitely. But no, I'm really enjoying this. You did a good job.
Mark, when you heard the ingredients, you were the one to protest the most. So what do you think, man?
I didn't protest. I'm just not a big fan of lemon or vodka, and you were going to use lemon.
I was going to use lemon vodka at first,
which you did not. So I'm happy.
No, that's because lemon vodka was it turned out too syrupy. It was really syrupy. That was syrupy,
really thick. Yeah.
The Grenadine that I'm using is syrupy as well. So it was literally like you were lubing up your your insides. It got real gross.
Molasses.
Although I got to say, once you told me you put food coloring in there, it just really ruined the entire thing.
Well, that was just for the pictures.
No, it's delicious. I got to say,
I do have pictures of it without the food coloring. It's still dark red. So I just wanted to get that dark, arterial red, like it was just poured out of your fucking heart.
It's quite good. It's quite good, Dave.
And I'm surprised none of you made the joke. Cranberry juice. What are you on your period?
Damn it.
All right, so let's get into talking about this film. We always like to go around and talk about our first impressions of the film, the first time we saw it, when we saw it, our memories of the film, just what makes this a classic, why it was even nominated in the first place. I'm going to go last because this was the film that I selected and it was my category. So we'll start with Mark. We'll go in reverse order this time. What's up, Mark?
Switching it up.
Yeah.
Well, I love me some practical effects. So I quite enjoyed it. I mean, I had seen it years before. It was actually, I had been wanting to rewatch it, so this came at a good time, and I really enjoyed it, this viewing, and it really is like kind of the ultimate in practical effects, horror movies. It's, how grotesque it is and what they do with the effects. It's pretty incredible, and it kind of makes the entire film, for me at least.
I think it does. I think the special effects are 100% what makes this such a memorable film. There's other things that go on throughout the film that also make it memorable. We'll get into them as we go through the film, sort of scene by scene in our second segment. Rob, what did you think of the thing? What's your memories of it?
Well,
how did you come around about it?
My memories are very fresh of this film. Since I
Like what? You're not alone, man.
I only watched it for the first time this morning. So
what'd you think?
I really enjoyed the film. They don't make movies like this anymore.
No.
They really don't.
They don't make them like this anymore.
I was really thinking about when I was watching it. I was like, you watch a movie today, you're spoon-fed what's going on.
It's true.
The actors have to tell you, oh, by the way, we're stuck here on this deserted continent. because we have to do this, and this. Whereas here, it was 30 minutes into the film, I really didn't even know fully what was going on. I understood they were in Antarctica.
To that, there's even, the film doesn't hold your hand at all. The first 30 minutes, no pun intended.
They don't even introduce all the people.
You're in the dark. Yeah, you only get people's names through exposition throughout the film. It's not like
not even a big exposition.
To the point that when this was recut for TV editing, the head of Universal Studios at the time had recut the film so that it added intros to every character because people complained about it. It's no secret the film didn't do well in the theaters. So
it had some competition, though.
So it did have some competition. We'll go through that in facts and trivia as well. But John Carpenter was extremely pissed off when they recut the film. Yeah, I mean,
I enjoyed that in the dark. You're right. I guess the best thing that you said there was that it doesn't hold your hand.
No.
And I really, as opposed to movies these days, I really enjoyed that.
It's the difference between like old video games. Remember old video games never had a fucking tutorial?
No tutorial,
You just jump right in and you play.
Mega Man 1 had to die 600 times before I figured out how to jump.
You learn the hard way.
You learn the hard way. And that's the way this film is. It's a product of the 80s and there's no hand holding. And also, throughout the film, we don't get answers. There's no deep exposition of what the thing actually is. In fact, by the end of the film, we never even get an answer. We don't know what the thing actually looks like. We don't know whether it actually came from space. There's tons of different theories about it as they go through the film. And to this day, I think it's one of the reasons that makes it last so long is that you can pick up the thing and you can watch it and you could come up with a different basis for the film than I could. And that's one of the things that's so great about it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. It's like, we talked on my last podcast, we talked about a Blade Runner fan film.
Right.
It's similar. The Blade Runner universe basically has different ideas for different things. Right. What were the replicants? What were the ideas behind them? What was going on there with all of them?
Almost like these movies came out on the same exact day. Oh wait, they did.
But it's interesting. It's very similar. It's a good point. I mean, they are two different kind of film properties that have different kind of genres in a sort of way, but give their audience the time and the respect to actually like have questions out left on the table and make up your own answers and make up your own other questions, So since you're yakety-yakking over there, sir. You guys touched on a lot of the things that I really loved. I mean, it was one of those things where right off the bat, like...
When was the first time you saw it? No, that's what I want. I want to know, like, when was the first time you saw it?
Last week.
Last week. All right.
Now, Jay, it was no anaconda, but...
That's true. I know you're...
I am a little disappointed, guys.
I know your ass is chapped hard from not getting anaconda.
Practical
I was trying to, play against
trying
the curve,
to cheat the system.
No, but I'll tell you what, though. You're right. I mean,
his movie did come in dead last in the poll. Like, dead fucking last.
A close third place.
I will gladly watch Anaconda for another category. No problem.
The thing, definitely deserves this show, and rightfully so. I mean, this thing is really gorgeous as far as the special effects, and one of the most interesting things about it is just how, like, the viewer doesn't know what the hell's going on, and you're also seeing a group of guys that have known each other obviously for probably a very long time, and maybe a lot of them are really good friends, just completely go, selfish and go,
go crazy.
Don't
mind if I do. Sorry, that's a little Simpsons joke.
Right over my head.
Everything about what we do, Jay, goes over your head.
Well, especially since I don't watch The Simpsons. Yeah. Again, animated.
Shit. Oh shit!
But no, I really enjoyed this film, and Kurt Russell was a great little leading star back in the day.
He was a badass, wasn't he?
He was. That hair, man.
I didn't really remember how much of a badass in that period of time in the 80s.
Came a long way from the computer wearing tennis shoes, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he was badass in that. I was watching him. He reminded me of Steven Seagal, I think. Like not with the whole
smacking women and taekwondoing the shit out of people.
But just like the type of attitude he had. He was like an 80s superstar.
He was. Mm-hmm. He was a John Carpenter superstar.
But Jay, going back to what you were saying about the camaraderie between the guys, I don't know. It's one of the things about the movie that I love is that you feel like you're there with them. Like you know, it's so atmospheric and they seem to, I don't know if it's, you know, what it is about how they filmed it, but you feel like you're with these guys.
Absolutely.
You're
remote.
situation with them.
Well, I mean, like,
you're in isolation with them.
Like Alien, it's like the Nostromo, where the atmosphere and where they are is so much of the film. It's claustrophobia. They're stuck there. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere for them to go. There's a blizzard
part
outside.
of the film.
You can't take a helicopter. MacReady can't jump in a helicopter and just get the fuck out of there, because if that snowstorm doesn't happen, that's 100% what MacReady would do, and then Outpost 31 wouldn't even be a thing. There wouldn't even be a movie, because it would just be MacReady flying across the Antarctic, getting to Chile, and just chilling out. No pun intended. But that's one of the things, and it gets into it like it is a creature feature like Alien, where it's all these characters trying to survive, but they're all just as confused, and it causes them a rift in the relationship. That's one of the important things to see in the beginning of the film, is to see these guys together, see them working together, trying to figure everything out, and then you watch those relationships fall apart throughout the film, because of the level of mistrust, because anybody could be the thing, with the exception of MacReady and Childs, who have a dislike from each other almost from the beginning. You can tell that they're both alpha male personalities, and there's a dick measuring contest between them at all times. And I love that.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Well, there's always going to be at least two.
And I love that those are the last two left in the film. So before we get into, I think I've given enough thoughts. I don't think we need to go through. I'll just real quick, I'll go through my first experiences with the film, not so much my thoughts on it, since I was peppering mine in with the rest of yours. But we did a poll. Obviously, we all selected a film for the category of practical effects creature features, and what we wound up with was The Thing won overwhelmingly with 46% of the vote. Jaws came in second with 26% of the vote, and Little Shop of Horrors, which was the one that if mine The Thing didn't win, I was secretly hoping for Little Shop of Horrors.
It was winning for a bit there.
It was. It started out
yeah.
strong. It was almost like 48% of the votes back when we had 5 votes.
Well, you know.
It started out strong. But it wasn't like I was rooting against Rob. I love Jaws. It's just we've done Jaws on Movie Cocktail, and we even released the old episode this year in the summer when me and Jay were out.
Hey,
so
it's a good thing then.
So it might be franchise fatigue. Don't worry, man.
Hey,
it's going to bounce. It's going to bounce back.
I got a category coming up soon.
You haven't DCEU'd it yet. However, Jay DCEU'd it long time ago, because in dead last, Anaconda came with 9% of the votes. And I just want to know, who the fuck out there was voting for Anaconda? It's got to be
had
people.
To be a joke.
My
how many
people.
Twitter accounts do you have?
Jay's Indie Corner people.
He already has I'm the one with like 6 Twitter accounts for different shows that I do. So.
Really? So it was you. I know.
Oh, secret!
I knew it.
46% of the votes, which means at least 200 of the votes were mine. Were on me. 200 Twitter.
I know
accounts.
you voted for Anaconda.
No, I'm very happy The Thing won. Back in the day when I was getting into watching films, I was a young teenager. I always talk about my sister's the one that showed me great things like Evil Dead 2, which Jay has for a homework assignment to watch on our main show. So stay tuned for what Jay thinks of Evil Dead 2, all you lovers of 80s horror. But this is one of those films that like I just had to seek out. I was young. I watched it. I saw this not too long after I saw Alien, and I was enamored with it. And there are times where I'll go back and forth whether I like Alien or whether I like The Thing. And there's a lot of times where I come up liking The Thing more than I even like Alien. I maybe it's because there hasn't been so much after The Thing that tarnishes it. You know, there's one sequel, which is technically a prequel. There's a novel that it's based off of from 1938. But I mean, other than that, there's been maybe 1 or 2 comic books and 1 video game. Like, that's it. It's not a well that you can go back to over and over again. But the film is just done so perfectly. I absolutely love it. And I watched it last night just before coming here to do this, and I was editing another show at the time, and I wound up not editing anymore. About 20 minutes in, I just stopped editing, and I just watched it.
Well, because that's how long it took to actually get into the film, though.
No,
20 minutes in before the thing actually
It was just one of those things where I realized, like, no, fuck, it sucked me in again. It just it dragged me in again. And there's so many little things going on. Characters looking at another character, just a character's facial expressions while another one's talking. You wind up looking and you're trying to figure it out now. You're trying to figure out how you could figure out that person was the thing before you realized they're the thing. And John Carpenter, throughout the making of the film, just threw shade at you the whole time. There really is no definitive answer.
Don't you appreciate like the acting too?
Oh yeah,
like overall,
absolutely.
like how these guys
especially in that final scene, which we're going to get to later on, because we're all going to do a little debate. We're all going to figure out which one of these two, 50-50 shot, which one of these two are the thing, or actually it's 25% shot. Are both of them the thing,
or neither?
Or neither of them the thing, which is the most tragic if it could be. But it all leads to that ending, and even then, it's like the entire film was training you for that ending. No. And training you in paying attention to detail. And that's one of the reasons why when I'm sitting there editing a podcast that I really had to get done, I actually had a deadline for this one because it wasn't for my show or my network. It was for someone else's network. I just said, fuck it. I have to sit here and I got to watch it again because I fucking love it that much. And I'm really happy that it won. So coming up next, me and the rest of the guys, we are going to go through the film, not scene by scene, but we're going to go through the film. We're going to discuss our favorite parts of it. We're going to discuss the things that we loved, our favorite characters, just before we get into facts and trivia. So stay tuned.
We're going to draw a little bit of everybody's blood. We're gonna find out who's the thing. Watching Norris in there gave me the idea that maybe every part of him was a whole. Every little piece was an individual animal with a built-in desire to protect its own life. You see, when a man bleeds, it's just tissue. The blood from one of you things won't obey when it's attacked. It'll try and survive. Crawl away from a hot needle, say.
And welcome back. So it's time to really dive into this movie. It's time to go through it, through its plot, through its characters, through our favorite scenes, and really just get into the shit that fucking made me fall in love with this film. So the film starts off, first off, before it really gets going, we see a spaceship just flying through space. And I remember the first time I saw this movie, I didn't know what year it was made, and I went, oh, Predator, right? Because the Predator starts off with the spaceship flying down towards Earth. Mm-hmm. And you realize Predator was made in fucking 1986, and this was made in 1982. So Predator thinged it instead of the thing Predatoring it.
Well,
so it starts off with the spaceship. It's just heading towards Earth, and then after the spaceship goes through the atmosphere, we get the letters coming through with the big bright light shining through, which is paying homage to the Thing from Another World.
Has anyone actually seen that?
The Thing from Another World?
1958
one? 1951?
No. I have not.
I've never seen it either.
Apparently it's one of John Carpenter's favorite films, which makes sense.
Yeah, that would make sense. And when we talk about things later on about like the making of and stuff like that, it's interesting that he says that it's one of his favorite films because he really didn't adapt that film here at all. He
adapted the story.
He adapted the original story. So then we get to a helicopter that's chasing a dog. It's chasing what I thought was a Siberian Husky, but through research I found out is a Grey Wolf Malamute mix, and his name was Jed. It's chasing.
Talk about deep dive.
Yeah, really, wow.
It's chasing the dog, and they're firing guns at the dog, and the dog is running through the tundra, and it comes to.
Really, it's just 31. One guy.
I think
being
it really
flown in a helicopter, right?
It's two guys.
One shooting.
Well, there's the helicopter pilot, and there's one shooting.
Right.
So there's only two in the.
That's what I meant. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Two Norwegians.
I think it also points out. I don't know if it was a deliberate thing, but how bad of a shot are the Norwegians? Because he must fire.
Oh, I know.
He must fire enough rounds out of that thing to, and some of those shots shot from the helicopter.
Why do
you
you
were
think,
right above him?
Why do you think in warfare they don't put snipers in helicopters?
No, but
they put machine guns in helicopters.
He was right above him a couple of times there. I'm sure that you couldn't have missed that shot.
Imagine
even me. I've never held a rifle.
A dog that can run 20 miles an hour. a helicopter that's going, just chasing it, moving back and forth with the yaw of the wind and everything like that. It's not going to be an easy shot.
That's a good point.
You have three moving targets. You have yourself moving, you have the helicopter that's moving, and then you have the dog that's moving. And making all those things...
I don't want to get too much into...
Only American
shots and stuff.
I'm really getting hung up on this intro.
I think only American Sniper can make that fucking shot. So
many things that could be said there about Americans and guns, and I won't go there being an Australian. So we'll leave it at that, shall we?
Yes. So anyway, the dog makes it to Outpost 31, which is where we get our first glimpse of the main characters that we'll be following for the entire rest of the story. Obviously, they're wondering who these crazy Swedes are, as MacReady keeps calling them, the crazy Swedes.
Right.
Everyone has to correct them that they're Norwegian. And the helicopter lands, and the guy comes out firing. Of course, he doesn't speak English, so there's no dialogue they could really have with each other. There's no explanation.
But he didn't even acknowledge there's other people. They just kept on shooting.
When they're, when he comes up and they're talking to him, he's speaking Norwegian. They don't understand a word that he's saying. So,
but he wasn't.
Well, neither do we, right?
Okay.
No, he talks to them. Trust me. He talks to them. He tries to explain it, but he's explaining it in a language none of them speak.
Okay.
So,
but in the film, there's no subtitles either.
No subtitles.
So
either.
we don't know exactly what he's
so
saying.
You're
either.
just as
has there been anywhere where it's sort of like it does give an explanation of exactly being translated to what he says?
But looking back on it, I really am happy that they did that.
Yeah, in Norway, it's opposite. They understand what those guys are saying, but then the whole rest of the movie is confusion.
Well, they probably subtitle the rest.
That would be a bad movie to go to, wouldn't it? You only understand the first 5 minutes of the film, and they're like, huh? What's going on?
The creature was cool. I mean,
I could really use a subtitle here. Come on.
So one of these guys gets the brilliant idea to take thermite grenades and throw it at the dog and just take care of it. As he pulls the pin, he goes to throw the grenade.
That's at the last minute, too.
Yeah, he drops it. And it lands next to the helicopter.
And there is a lot of thermite grenades in that helicopter, isn't there?
And there's a reason for that, which we'll get into when we talk about what the Norwegians were up to.
Why were they hunting the dog again?
Because the dog was the thing, man.
Oh, because they were trying to kill the thing.
They were trying to kill the thing, right? They are the Norwegians.
Really, you got to think about it. The Norwegians are trying to save the world.
Oh yeah, okay.
Right.
I mean,
I thought they were
the
just doing it for fun.
The Americans just do anything, but the Norwegians are trying to save the world.
We understand later on why the Norwegians were acting the way they were acting, because we see Dr. Blair acting that way once he realizes what's really going on.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we will understand why they were acting that way. And for any questions that I'm not going to use the 2011 prequel to explain anything. I think this movie does enough to explain.
We're not acknowledging that
movie,
David.
I own it. I watch it from time to time, and only in comparison to this one do I watch it to just kind of. It does have some interesting parts in it. It did try some cool things. It just was nowhere near to the level that this is. Now, so after the helicopter blows up, the other guy starts shooting at the dog again. The dog is around people. So the leader of the group, he breaks out the window with his revolver, pops the guy right in the eye. Down goes the Norwegian. Norwegians are done, and our characters are left wondering what the fuck's going on.
Wait, so again, my confusion here. When they land the helicopter, the guy walks out with the gun, still trying to shoot the dog. It's the pilot that picks up the thermite grenade and basically throws it backwards behind him trick.
Yeah, just
and then blows himself up with his own helicopter.
He's wearing thick gloves, and it's snow, so it's slippery. So, it's possible.
So that didn't seem to bother anybody else during the entire film. I mean...
MacReady wears fingerless gloves, so...
Antarctica.
Because he's cool.
Nobody ever seems to care about the
80s style.
cold. But go on.
I'm so happy you guys are getting so fucking hung up on the first 5 minutes of this fucking film.
It's important.
It is important. It's true.
We got 100.
Because there's not much else that's said in this in the beginning of the film.
116 more minutes to get through, fellas. Just want to remind you of that. So anyway, Gary, the outpost leader, shoots the last Norwegian in the eye, and they're left wondering what the fuck's going on. So Clark, who is the guy who is basically the dog keeper there, takes the dog in to gets it checked out, and MacReady and Dr. Cooper decide that they're going to go check out the Norwegian outpost to find out what happens. They take off in the helicopter. They go check out the Norwegian outpost, and what they find is a horror show. The Norwegian outpost is practically burned down. There's bodies everywhere, most of them burned, and when they come across the final body as they're leaving, it's a horrible, grotesque mutation of a human. So they decide to take the specimen back for further study. And Dr. Cooper performs an autopsy on the burned remains and finds out that it's part human, at least part. He's finding human parts. He finds a human heart inside of it,
organs, yeah.
But he cannot find anything else that would say that it's human. So they're left in confusion. At this point, Clark takes the dog that was running from the Norwegians and decides to put it in the kennel with the rest of the dogs. As it gets put As it gets put into the kennel, moments later, it shows that the dog is actually not a dog at all, but it is the thing. And it has that... God, I'm going to say, because I have a husky, so this scene breaks my heart.
Yeah.
When the dogs are all whining and whimpering.
So bad.
But we get a close-up of the dog's back, and all these red little tentacles are popping out of it. They're whipping around everywhere. And one of the grossest things, like, after it reveals itself, and, like, its chest opens up, and it starts becoming, like, this strange creature, one of the dogs is biting at the fence. Trying to get out.
Yeah.
And that, like, my dog, Luca, his two front canine teeth are actually chipped and cracked, because if you put him in a cage, it's exactly what he'll do.
He tries to chew out.
He'll chew his way out. So I know that it's something huskies will do. But then the thing like spits like this shit out, and it just sprays all over the dog, this thick green viscous goo.
And that's the dog that's chewing its way out.
But that's actually the dog that winds up getting assimilated too. The other two dogs will eventually escape. Hearing the commotion, Clark and the rest of the crew come in, and they go to check what's going on. As they open the gate, two of the dogs go running out, and they see that the thing is dragging another dog in. It's killing another dog. So MacReady comes in with his shotgun, starts blasting the thing, blasts the dog, which upsets Clark, who goes to fight MacReady to keep him from shooting the dogs. And they wind up getting Childs to come in, Childs, who's played by Keith David, to burn it. And Childs is so in awe of what he's seeing, in shock, really, that he doesn't kill it until this giant flower-like mouth, which looks a lot like the Demogorgon. When I watched Stranger Things, and I watched this scene, and I went, that might be where they got the design for the Demogorgon face.
No, I think they did. Yeah. I definitely think they did.
It would be just like them to pay homage to something like this.
But when you really think about it, though, it does make sense. Like, think about it. These guys have literally done nothing and seen nothing probably for so long, and all of a sudden this shit just drops in their lap, and they're just completely blindsided by all this. So it makes sense with their reactions. Like, every single character, like him being hesitant with the flamethrower.
They're very aware of the isolation.
Him not wanting them to shoot the dogs. Like, it makes sense. Like, as a viewer, you're kind of like, whoa, something's up. You got to shoot the dogs, prevent it from happening. But for them and their perspective, it does make sense.
Well, just before that, we saw MacReady drinking a whole bunch of J&B whiskey and pouring it into his computer after he lost in chess.
Cheating bitch.
Yeah. So, and that's actually the only female that you'll hear in this entire movie is the voice of the computer, and that was done by John Carpenter's wife, who did the voice for the computer.
Now, I just want to point out again, it might be me being Australian, but this is a research facility in Antarctica, right? Can we do a count of all the research facilities in Antarctica and find out any of the other ones that have flamethrowers in them? I mean, did anybody else find that weird that there was...
No.
There was... And we're not just talking one flamethrower.
They say what the flamethrowers are for.
I missed that then.
Yeah, if there's a storm, you're going to get snowed in. You're gonna have to melt snow and melt it rapidly to get things.
Also, it looks badass.
I'll give the badass thing.
Also, Alien had flamethrowers.
Yeah, but that was like almost there was military. That were.
I mean, you're out in the wild.
But they explain it. It is for melting snow rapidly.
It makes sense with this melting snow thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Childs,
easy firestorm.
So as Childs is about to get blasted by the thing, he burns it. And they decide to, again, take this specimen back, and Dr. Cooper begins to... I'm sorry, not Dr. Cooper this time. Wilford Brimley's character, Dr. Blair.
Diabetes.
Well, I see this thing's problem. It's got the diabetes. I swear that's the last diabetes joke we'll do for 5 minutes.
Try. No,
So he's dissecting it, and he says, part human, there's some dog in here, there's some things I don't even know what the fuck is in here. So he takes some samples, and he also takes that thing out, and they decide to move it out to the shed. And in the shed, it'll stay cold, it'll stay preserved, but they'll be able to do more studies on it. And to them, they think they're finding the find of a century. Even Windows says, man, we can't throw this out. Yeah, someone's going to get their name in National Geographic and get the Nobel Prize for it.
Someone's going to win a Nobel Prize for this, yeah.
Bet you like to prove that, wouldn't you? Get your name in the National Geographic. Sorry, we didn't get to talk about Jaws, so I figure I'll just throw a line in there every now and then. But to what I was talking about to Jay earlier is they do understand the isolation that they're in and what it means to work at the outpost in Antarctica.
Right.
Because that's their first thought of what happened to the Norwegians is that someone suffered from cabin fever and they've just been there too long.
That was their first response. It had been cabin fever. It's the only way.
They're all in confusion about what's going on, and while they were there, they grabbed as much research material as they could. So they get a bunch of VHSs, or probably Betamaxes, or whatever, that they got video from the Norwegian outpost. And the Norwegians, what they find out in the video, even though they can't understand what's going on, is that they found something in the ice, and that they excavated it. They see them using thermite bombs to blow the ice up. And they decide to go check out whatever it was. So MacReady and I believe it's Dr. Cooper and I want to say that it's Palmer go to check out the site. And what they find buried under the ice is a spaceship. And then about 100 yards from that, they find another part that is a perfect square that was cut out of the ice. And that's when we find out that the ice that this thing's been buried in is close to 10,000 years old. So the spaceship crashed about 10,000 years ago, and they found the pilot. That is what they refer to it as. But they also discussed later on that the pilot may not actually be the pilot. The spaceship may have actually crashed because the pilot was infected with the thing.
Yeah, that was the idea I got.
That was the idea. So when they go back to the facility, they kind of have a better understanding of what they are dealing with. And Dr. Blair is the first one that Wilford Brimley is the first one that really comes up with the idea. He's monitoring the cells of the creature that they found, and they're finding out that it has perfect replication of cells. Its cell will replicate over and over and over again until it's fully replicated the creature that it means to replicate. And it can hold those in memory. So it can turn into any creature it's ever assimilated, ever. He runs that diagnostic, and it's 75% possible that another member of the party is already infected. And we know that because before the dog got put in the kennel, we see it walking around all over the place in the facility.
That shadow, right?
And we see walking in. Right. And John Carpenter was very careful not to use the shadow of any actual actor. It's actually just a hand on set that was actually that shadow. So you don't know who actually is the thing. So they all... he locks himself away, Dr. Blair, after realizing that if it ever makes landfall in 27,000 hours, the world's population will be assimilated. They all are in the rec room and they're discussing what to do. They all discuss, who and what and where and how all this could happen. And that's when the guy that works in the kitchen, Knowles, comes out and he said, "Would one of you disgusting creatures stop leaving your long johns lying around?" And it's a pair of torn up long johns. And MacReady actually studies it for a few seconds. You actually see him looking at it. He's like, "This is odd," because they're just torn up. Why would they just be torn up? They take this. And this is the point where they actually take the specimens out and into the shed. And this is when Windows goes out with Bennings. And they're leaving the creatures out there. And Windows says he has to go back inside real quick. And Bennings becomes the first person who is assimilated. We get that scene where the blood and the goo is kind of dripping off one of them. And when Windows returns, Bennings is completely wrapped up in tentacles. His shirt's torn off. And this is where they realize that The reason they found a torn up long johns, is because someone was already assimilated. Benning's thing escapes, and he's running through, and this is one of the first shots that I just really loved in the film. It's dark, it's windy, it's cold, and the thing tries to get away, but it hasn't fully assimilated Benning's yet. MacReady catches up to it, and when he looks at it, it's got those claw hands, those big hands, and that the first time you hear it, when you hear it, just look at them and goes, it was fucking scared. The first time I saw it, that was scary as shit.
Yeah. Just like before, though, can I just point something else out here? I said before how many flamethrowers there were. But how much weed is there at this research outpost as well? There's several times where there's several people just toking right up.
Yeah, Windows is toking, Palmer's toking.
And there's the one that they're sharing the joint in the bedroom while watching old episodes of...
Fuck it, I've seen this one. Know how it ends.
I mean, they must have brought a bucket load of that.
It kind of makes sense, but it's a sign of the times, and also, you know, they are just a small bunch of guys just by themselves in Antarctica. So
smoking and drinking.
I mean, what else are you going to do?
Cruise ship life.
Yeah. What else are you going to do?
Yeah, you know this, right?
No, absolutely. Cruise ship life. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
They got to stop themselves from turning to pegging at some point, you know.
Well, they probably fed their paranoia, but.
So they wind up burning Bennings and destroying him. And then they even come back later and do it more. They come back later and they kick over all of the kerosene, all of the fuel for the helicopter, and burn everything that they possibly can. That would be the thing. But obviously they still know that there's something out there. This is about the point that someone mentions that Dr. Blair has locked himself away for quite some time. And we get the scene where Dr. Blair's taking an axe to all the communication systems, to everything. Dr. Blair is convinced that he needs to isolate everybody and stop this thing from spreading. He's already given up. He already knows that the outpost is done. Everybody who's there is dead.
But maybe he's like the true hero of the story here.
Kind of, but
he's trying to say, you know, we all need to die here, because if even one of us gets away, it could have the thing, and then.
But at the time when you're looking at it, you think he's the crazy man,
right?
Yeah.
But but we know as the audience that he's not that crazy, because at least we saw no one else has seen the results of what he was doing. Right. So they wind up locking him out in the shed, and he's left out there because later on it's real creepy.
The shed in Antarctica, by the way.
When they come back, and they go to talk to him, and he's like, "I'm fine. I can come back. You have my word. I swear." There's a noose hanging there.
Yeah, no, I saw that too.
I would be like,
you didn't even acknowledge it.
You want me to think you're okay? Take the noose down. I'll check on you tomorrow.
The whole thing is, you're in Antarctica, and he opens up this little screen that maybe is like not even maybe a quarter inch of metal.
But doesn't
to an Antarctic winter storm that's going on. So he can't be insulated in this little tool shed.
Minus 40 degrees, by
How
the way.
is he
But
living?
at the same time, an alien would not have made that noose.
Yeah.
So, right?
Well, it could have. Because the thing
that's trying to survive is trying to
because the
thrive.
thing has all knowledge of anything that it's ever assimilated, so it's already assimilated humans
also,
at that point.
Can the person fight the infestation?
I don't know.
No.
It just doesn't make any sense.
No.
You can't.
No, because you're not infected. You're actually.
I'm wondering if it was just something that was there and was left in the shot, or was it purposely done?
It was purposely done.
I mean,
I think,
and the fact that it's never discussed is what I think is where we're always going to have.
Well, I
questions
found it
about
peculiar that they didn't discuss it, but I also took away from the news because I just felt like, that just makes it a fact that he's actually human. He's fine.
It's very simple
because an alien creature would not do that or even remotely.
I like that. I like that idea.
It's a visual representation of the desperation and
for a human
and the dire nature that they're in. Right.
I like that. Yeah, of a human. Yeah.
Let's be fair.
That's my take.
We don't know when.
Well, we don't know. That's the thing. That's this movie.
Yeah,
you
you just don't know. You don't know.
But that's my take on it. Just like Blade Runner and just like The Thing, every one of us, all four of us, are going to have different kind of viewpoints and different kind of takes on every single character, every single thing they think to do, every decision they make, and the way the story goes.
So now that Dr. Blair's locked away, MacReady asks, and I love this character's name, Fox.
Is it actually pronounced that way?
F-U-C-H-S.
Fox,
It's
maybe?
Fuchs. It's Fuchs.
And is that on IMDb as well? Or? There it is.
F-U-C-H-S. So he asked him to go through all of Dr. Blair's research. That's when the rest of the crew knows now what Blair knows, and there's the possibility that someone's already been assimilated. There's that no matter what, they're probably not going to get out of this. But damn it, MacReady's going to fucking try. So they, at one point, they decide to go outside, and they're actually looking for Fox, who, what wound up happening was
he went out earlier.
Right. So they're in. He's there. He's doing research, and the lights in the facility go out. Everybody's kind of gone their separate ways. No one wants to be near anyone else with the new information they have that one of them could be assimilated already. The lights go out, and he lights a candle. And as he's coming out, there's that shadow that goes by, but no one knows who that was. And then that person goes outside. Fox follows him, and what? I don't know how else to say it. F-U-C-H-S. Fox.
I'm sure that the French say it differently, but
he finds MacReady's shirt, and he's wondering who put it there. And we don't hear anything from him. After a while, the rest of the crew realizes that he's missing, and they decide to go on a little expedition. MacReady goes out with Knowles and I believe it's Windows, I want to say. Knowles and Windows. And as they're out there, MacReady sends Windows back after they find Fox's dead body, and he sends Windows back, and Knowles asks, why'd you send him back? And he goes, because
my light's on.
My shack's lights are on, and I turned it off yesterday. Yeah. And we don't see MacReady and Knowles for about 15 minutes in the film. It's actually at this point that they kind of have almost like a time jump. And I think they mentioned that it's been 45 minutes since they've been out there.
Yeah, I think it was close
and they also mentioned that the storm has come, and it's 40 below out, and that no one probably could have survived this long. Knowles comes back in, and they let him in right away. Yeah. And he's the one spouting, MacReady's that thing. I found the... I
had to cut him loose.
I found his torn up shirt stuffed inside of the... stuffed inside of the furnace in his hut. Now that's one of the things that I found interesting, because how did it get from where Fox was to into the furnace in there? And we still don't know what character did that. So he said that, you see the lifeline that they have that goes to every different building. Yeah. So when there's inclement weather, you just follow the line. They did the same thing in the Hateful Eight. They do a tow line from the back door all the way to the shit house.
By this movie, apparently.
What's that?
It was partly inspired by this movie, apparently.
Oh, was it? Yeah. The line? Nice. So
the film itself, all the men in the cold,
in the cold, yeah. Because ain't no one ever been colder than your boy was that day. I stuck my big black pecker.
I knew that was coming.
into his warm mouth.
Right before the intermission too. That's the best part.
So anyway, they're locking up all the doors. They're boarding up everything. They're not going to let MacReady back in.
Not doing a good job of the boarding thing too. It's almost like cartoon boarding.
At one point, like
the boards are like all haphazard.
Windows grabs one board.
They're scientists,
and he shoves it under a doorknob and just hammers it in. And as he's hammering it, you actually see it's like bouncing around.
Yeah.
But they forgot about the windows. Yeah. MacReady breaks a window and goes in, and this is one of my favorite parts in the film. They all come running in, and they all go to bum rush him, and in the dark, he kind of just lights up that flare, and he's holding dynamite strapped to him in a 4 sticks of it in a bundle in his hand. He's like, I'll fucking blow you all up. Nobody come near me. Nobody fucking touch me.
Which makes sense because he knows how they're going to react.
The dumbass Norris jumps on him. MacReady throws him off, and Childs goes to attack him as well. And he says, I'm not fucking kidding, man. And this is when Norris has a massive heart attack. And they decide to get Dr. Cooper, who at this point they had already tied up Dr. Cooper.
I'm losing track of all the names right now.
Yeah, Dr. Cooper, Palmer, and Clark. because those are the ones that had the most likelihood to be infected. Because they were going to...
They'd already tied them up earlier.
They tied them up earlier because they were going to do that blood test, and they found out that all of their blood samples that they had already taken before the mission actually started were destroyed. And those were it was Gary, Clark, and Dr. Cooper who had the most access to it. So those three were tied up. They decided to let Dr. Cooper loose to work on Norris, and of course, when he goes to work on Norris, this is one of the truly like shocking scenes and one of the best scenes of special effects in the entire film. As they're working on him, he goes to defibrillate him. He defibrillates him once, nothing happens. He goes to do it again, and I have a theory about why the chest opens up and bites his hands off. I think being shocked hurt it.
No, definitely.
Yeah. So it couldn't get shocked again. So the thing was Norris. I don't know why it feigned a heart attack. I guess it thought that if he was dead, he would be able to be left alone long enough to seduce somebody else.
Or maybe he hadn't finished fully assimilating. Or
so he's as he's laying there, the chest opens up and it just swallows Dr. Cooper's arms and then chomps down with those gnarled, like brownish gray teeth. That
scene is brutal.
And that's the biggest thing that I took away from this movie is that it takes so many different kind of looks and styles and the special
there's no
effects.
one. Yeah, the thing is not one thing.
Oh, it's completely different every single time.
And
it's so
you were
unique.
talking about Predator before. Like, you know what the Predator looks like. Every single scene is the Predator.
Well, not until the third act you don't know what the Predator looks like.
Yeah, but it's always the same.
It's just an
Whereas
opaque
the thing,
blob.
it could be any, with the dog, it looked like the dog. With the, everywhere else, it has a different look.
Always a
every
surprise.
single time.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I took away from this movie the most, and I really appreciated it. It was really cool.
So Cooper's hands get bit off, and he's dead. I'm assuming he just bleeds to death. And that's when Norris's body just breaks into pieces, man. The head just kind of falls off, and it has that.
Oh, it kind of extends almost.
I thought this was interesting, and I know that there's a reason for it. Previously, we'd seen a lot of red and a lot of blood and stuff when the thing was changing into other things. This time it's green, and it's sprouting out like green-black goo as the head is dripping off. I'm assuming that at some point they were worried that they were going to get an NC-17 rating for too much blood and gore. So they had to go with green. It's the same type of thing they had to do in Evil Dead 2.
Was there even a rating system back then?
Yes, there was a rating system. It was there was G, PG, and R.
Yeah.
And if you go above R, you were pretty much in pornography films. That's Caligula was rated X. It's one of the few films that actually get recognition for being rated X. So so they made it green, which is a lot like they had to do with Evil Dead 2, where the walls vomited big red blood out everywhere, but they had to change the blood from red to black to green. So the head falls off, and it's one of the coolest shots that you get in the film. The head, it's just the head sitting there. And then these bulbous eyes just pop up like a crab, and then legs come stretching out like a crab, and it sneaks away. And MacReady burns it, just burns the whole thing. And after he's done burning it, he's sitting there. He's almost kind of proud of himself, and he's talking about that they're going to have to tie this person up, and he looks behind him. And he sees the head trying to crawl away, and it's one of the few things I found pretty funny in the film, where MacReady looks at it and the creature goes, you saw me, did you? And of course he burns that one, and this is the point where we really get into how desperate MacReady's getting. He ties up Palmer, Windows. He ties up everybody with the exception of Knowles, because he believes that Knowles isn't infected like him, or at least he believes that he can keep him at a distance enough, or maybe he can control him. Because Knowles the whole time he's the kitchen guy, right? He's the maid, he's the cook, and he's
the guy on roller skates.
He's the guy on roller skates.
Who doesn't like a guy on roller skates?
And this is where he comes up with the blood test. But something that MacReady didn't know was that Clark, the dog handler, had stolen a scalpel during the commotion that was going on with Norris turning into the thing. And he goes to attack MacReady, and MacReady, fucking gunslinger, just turns around, bang, shoots him right between the eyes, and Clark is dead. So he decides to take all their blood, and he has an idea that the thing operates different organisms, it can separate itself. So if you separate a part of the thing, it becomes almost like a separate organism. However, the bigger the thing gets, the more intelligent it will be. Mm-hmm. So the smaller it is, the more reactionary it'll be, the more instinctual it'll be. So if it's just blood in a petri dish and you poke it with a hot needle,
something's gonna happen.
Right. It will defend itself in the most rudimentary of ways, which is where we got our cocktail, the blood test. So he tests everyone's blood, and I loved when he tests Clark's blood, and Childs looks at him, Keith David looks at him, and he goes, he was human. That makes you a murderer. But to be fair, Clark was going to stab him with a scalpel.
He was going with the self-defense. Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty sure MacReady's going to sleep well. I think they also...
also the fact they're on Antarctica, right. I don't know which...
Who's... maritime laws, maybe?
I mean, it's got to be an American station, so it's got to be American laws, but at the same time, got to all survive to actually be prosecuted.
But I think they also mention that, or at least it's extremely hinted at, that he was a helicopter pilot in Vietnam. I'm sure he's done much worse things than shoot Clark between the eyes for killing him. Or at least he has memories of doing that. He has daily flashbacks of that. So he goes through all their blood. He's clearing them one by one. He gets to Palmer's blood, and of course it jumps out. And I love the effect. It's just a practical effect. When it jumps out, it's like it has teeth, it has eyes, it has little arms, and it goes like real quick. And he quick drops it. But like if you freeze frame it, you see like all the detail that was in it. Detail for like 3 or 4 frames of film. Like it's literally a blink and you'll miss it when it pops up. But a lot of detail went into making that small gooey puppet. And then, of course, this is a crazy scene, man, where Palmer, like, his body starts shaking, and everybody's like, get me the fuck out of here. And Windows, who has been given a flamethrower, goes to burn him. And, like, Palmer just grabs him, opens up his entire face, and bites Windows, and is just slamming him around. It's one of the few times where I was like, special effects aren't that good in this scene. Palmer looked a little wonky, but... definitely Windows getting thrown around. Didn't even look like a mannequin. It looked like 4 pieces of wood just hammered together with shirt and pants on it, slamming it around. It's one of the few times where I was like, man, the creature effects are great, but the people effects,
the people are what ruin it.
Good. And now, I mean, we're really getting to like the end of the film. It's kind of like a race to the finish now. Everybody is starting to die off. We're left with the final part where they decide to go out and get Dr. Blair. And as they go out there, they realize Dr. Blair's not there. They left up the floorboards. Dr. Blair's gone. And they find out that there's a tunnel down there. And as they go down there, this is where I get a little confused about how much time has passed. Because Jay mentions that Dr. Blair...
How quickly can you dig a tunnel?
Right. That Dr. Blair was clearly he's definitely the thing has definitely assimilated a badger once or twice because he dug pretty fast and had time to sneak out of there
or an earthworm
to steal pieces of helicopter and different components from the facility to start creating its own mini spaceship, a mini version of what they found buried in ice. So Jay,
that was confusing. So, I know.
So Jay, if Blair made a noose, but because he was human. And that was only a day or 2 ago. How long has he been working on this spaceship on his off time as a human?
But was it him? We don't really know.
It's true, but it could have been any number of them. But at some point,
it could have.
The thing went into the shed and either assimilated Dr. Blair and then began working on it. Don't forget, it can also split itself. So while it was the thing inside of Norris and inside of Palmer, it was also the thing inside of Blair.
No.
So it can split itself. And so it could have been...
that's the whole point of the assimilation. It's like taking over multiple bodies. It's not just one at a time. And that's when you see that from the... like when they're talking about like his 27,000 hours sort of thing,
right?
You can see that's because it's not just one person being affected to lead to the next person being affected. It's got to be multiple people being affected over multiple times.
Its intelligence can split.
And you're right, because I also had a little confusion as far as like the time and also how the hell did he have the capability to make or anybody to make that kind of spaceship.
So
in a little weird underground bunker.
So at this point, it's just Nauls, MacReady, Childs, and Gary, the outpost leader, left. And they leave Childs inside when they go out to get Dr. Blair. And Dr. Blair does turn out to be the thing. It kills Gary. It kills Nauls. And MacReady blows up Dr. Blair with one of the sticks of dynamite and blows up his entire underground bunker. And they had already decided at that point to burn everything. They know that the only thing that hurts it is fire. So they burned everything. And they decided to raise the temperature around there. And after MacReady is coming back from Blair's lair,
Blair's lair,
he goes to just outside the outpost. He stops to have himself a drink, and Childs comes out. Now, before that, they all said, "Where's Childs? Where's Childs going?" The lights go out, and Childs comes out, and it looks like he's chasing somebody down. Childs comes up, and they decide to sit there and have a drink because they don't know which one of them is the thing. So they're going to sit there, and they're going to freeze to death. The thing won't die, but damn sure it's going to get stuck in that ice, and there's not going to be any rescue for them. So now let's come down to that. I mean, that's where the film ends. The film just kind of goes to black with that great music. It
is. Yeah.
So let's go through everybody's theory on here. Who was the thing in the end? Jay, who was the thing? Or was there a thing?
Boy.
Is it an ultimate tragedy where they're technically both human?
My initial? Initial.
Yeah.
Nobody was.
Okay, nobody was. That's sad, yeah.
It is sad. And but at the same time, but that's the great thing about this movie is like when you really actually like think about it, take time to marinate the process, my thoughts start varying considerably. But when I first watched that film and as soon as it ended, that was my initial reaction. And that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Human.
Rob.
I'm on a similar thought, but at the same time, when they're sitting there and they're freezing to death, I almost would think that if they were the alien, if they were the thing, it would try to escape to get somewhere else. I'd get that opinion that...
But it's warm there right now.
Yeah.
They have time. And don't forget, the only reason it assimilates living people is because if it assimilates a dead person, it's going to be a dead giveaway. Whoever comes to rescue them, they could be whoever they want when they come to rescue them.
I think it's one of those like...
It's tricky.
What's that old story that there's the cat in the box and you don't know if it's going to be alive or dead?
Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah, you don't know if it's alive or dead, but it's in the box. At the same time, it could be
technically
both.
By opening the box and discovering that the cat's dead, you killed the cat.
Exactly. So I think it's the same sort of thing here. You know, they both could be. One could be. Neither of them could be. But we'll never know because that box is never going to get opened.
Okay. Mark, who's the thing?
I'm going to say exactly the same thing. I thought they were both human at the end. I mean, it's ambiguous. I mean, no one really knows, you know.
So there's a lot of theories out there. There's the eye shine theory that the thing has its eyes. Like the people will have the reflection of light in their eyes, and the thing doesn't. And that comes from the fact that when Palmer,
so much like Blade Runner. My God.
When Palmer turns into the thing, sitting in a chair, you don't see any light in his eyes, but you see light in Childs, you see light in Gary, you see light in MacReady's. That gets thrown to hell because there's actually plenty of scenes where Childs has light in his eyes, and at that end scene, Childs has light in his eyes, and so does MacReady.
Yeah.
So that theory.
Somebody was reaching.
The second theory is that MacReady knows that Childs is the thing because they used a bunch of empty liquor bottles for Molotov cocktails when they were burning down Outpost 31, and that the bottle that MacReady is holding is filled with kerosene. It's why he doesn't sip it. But when Childs comes up, he's about to sip it. So did he actually see Childs walking up behind him and pretend to sip it to trick the thing? And then there is a part where Childs takes a sip from the bottle and doesn't wince, doesn't do anything, and MacReady laughs, and he's just like, I guess we'll just have to see. Yeah. He's kind of smiling. Like he's the cat that got the canary. Like he knows that Childs is the thing. But MacReady's a sick fuck. He could just be smiling because that's really his only reaction to everything.
At that point, he's been through a lot of shit.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that theory's out. That's still a possibility. But I think the fact that MacReady was going to sip it just before he came up, I don't think he knew that Childs was coming up behind him. Then the final theory that people have is, oh, well, you see MacReady's breath the whole time. You don't see Childs' breath at all. There's two reasons for that. MacReady is backdropped by darkness, and it is his breath that you can see because he's front lit. Childs is actually backlit. There's fire all behind him, so you're not going to see the breath as easily, but you do actually see his breath coming out. So that theory's out. But the final theory is the last time you see Childs, as they all leave, Childs is wearing black pants and a blue jacket with the flamethrower on his back. When Childs comes up after everything's burned down, he's in a gray jacket and gray pants. And if he was assimilated, those clothes he was wearing before would have been shredded and destroyed.
So he would have needed more.
So he would have needed new clothes. And we know that the thing can't get too cold. I really think that in the end, it doesn't matter which one's the thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. But if I had gun to my head, you made me make a choice. It's Childs, right? Yeah. It's Childs. Material that came out after this, which doesn't, not saying it holds any bearing over this film at all. Comic books and video games, they all have MacReady surviving and that he wasn't the thing. That it was ultimately Childs.
You need a hero.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And MacReady is your hero. I mean,
he's Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell is John Carpenter's hero, right? I mean, like he was Snake Plissket, and he was also in Big Trouble in Little China. You know, I mean, he's John Carpenter's guy. But also Keith David, he was in They Live. You know, I mean, I think he was in The Thing first, and then They Live comes out afterwards. But I mean, so both of these actors are someone who John Carpenter works with again. But definitely MacReady is your hero. He's the guy that you go to. So you want him to not be the Thing. Yeah. But let's face it, he was missing for 45 minutes. He could very well be the Thing.
Yeah. And that is still a very peculiar.
And it wouldn't be past the thing to kill a version of itself already for its own self-preservation and survival.
And his look was pretty grotesque. I mean, he was really frozen to bits.
Yeah.
I mean, his face was completely just raw and frozen over.
So definitely, please reach out to us on Twitter @SuperMoviePod. Let us know who, at the end of the film, who you think is the Thing, and let us know some reasons for your evidence.
Yeah, you have to.
So coming up next, we are going to get into facts and trivia about the Thing. All the stuff that was going on behind the scenes, all the stuff that was going on in production, post-production, and its critical reception.
Your move, bishop to knight 4. My move, knight to rook 3.
Poor baby, you're starting to lose it, aren't you?
Your move, king to rook 1. My move, rook to knight 6. Checkmate. Checkmate.
Cheeky bitch.
So welcome back to a little bit of our facts and trivia on the Thing. So the first thing that I had, and it's something I alluded to before when we were talking, this is not based on the original The Thing from Another World, which was made in 1951. It is actually a more accurate retelling of the story from the book, Who Goes There? Even though the opening starts out just like The Thing from Another World, it is more directly an adaptation of the 1938 novel, which was written by John W. Campbell.
And that was because Carpenter loved the original film so much that he wanted to just, he didn't even want to touch it in that way.
Right.
He didn't want to try to compete with it. So.
Something that was extraordinarily heartbreaking to him, the director of The Thing from Another World hated John Carpenter's version.
Well, John Carpenter doesn't like the Rob Zombie Halloween movies, so
yeah,
there you go.
It's true.
Yeah,
it all comes full circle.
Exactly.
But now, he was actually very heartbroken about that. And one of the quotes that the original director had was that if you want blood and gore, don't go to the cinema. And it's like.
No. People hated this movie when it came out because it was so gory and just abysmal, and
I loved it.
It's funny. That's one of the
now
reasons
now
we
it
love
has a cult following and people love it, but at the time people just didn't want to see that, I guess.
Yeah, it's one of those crazy things, but
really just weren't used to seeing it. That's really what it is.
They wanted E.T., they wanted happy aliens, friendly aliens,
So this is actually John Carpenter's favorite personal film that he's actually made.
Who says, Jay? You?
Says trivia on IMDb.
Says IMDb.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, start again. I'm sorry.
No, that's perfect.
No, that was good. That was good.
I mean, how else am I going to know? It's IMDb.
Yeah.
No, it's true. John Carpenter, this was one of his personal favorite films. And he actually, one of the things is he takes all of his films that have failed really close to heart. He actually goes into like depression when they fail critically.
I appreciate that. But at the same time, I've never seen any other film of his.
And this is
Probably why he hasn't made a film in a while, honestly.
and this is the one that disappointed him the most. No, not since what, Ghosts of Mars was like the last John Carpenter's film. But yeah, it was actually panned, as we were discussing before, for its gory effects. Like people did not like it. But there's a lot of things.
They're just not used to looking at that kind of thing. But now looking back on it,
now you can appreciate it. Yeah.
Really appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, not just appreciate it, but really appreciate it.
But this was writing the book on it. The whole reason that we get
exactly
this is
the most fascinating thing about our generation, our age, being alive right now is actually being able to see movies from all these different kind of generations and current technology and how things got revamped over around 2000 when the CGI explosion came upon, and then how that got reeled in as of late.
When home video came about in the late 80s and was far more prominent than it was in the early 80s, this film found its cult following, and it found. This film really spawned not a genre, but really spawned a lot of people in the 80s and even into the early 90s wanting to do a lot of great practical effects. Like this raised the bar for great practical effects, and that's one of the reasons.
A lot of people,
and that's why it got a lot of people.
It gets the best emotional response. Right,
it does, and
more than anything.
And even at one point, John Carpenter, the studio wanted him to find an alternative to the special effects. So he said, "Yeah, that's fine." And they offered, they told him, take a couple days and do some stop motion animation, do claymation. Let's see how it looks on film. And he did it, and he did his very best at it. And when he showed it to them, it was stoppy, it was jerky, it just didn't look real. And then, compared to what they had done in test footage for the practical effects, even the studio was like, "Yeah, all right, practical effects.
Just go with that. Yeah,
just go with it. It looks a whole lot better."
Goddamn right.
It makes sense that the same guy did the effects for Total Recall, because the same kind of grotesque, mutations and things like that.
I can see that with the stretching of the skin.
Yeah.
And
right. So this film was actually released on the same exact day as Blade Runner, Ridley Scott's film. And the similarities don't end there. So both films were completely bombed. They both bombed critically and with audiences. And
it's mind-boggling, right?
But then in the late 80s, like again with home video, and in the 90s with all the directors' recuts and re-releases and stuff of it, it found its cult following. So it wasn't the generation that could actually go it wasn't the generation that could go to the movies and see it that loved it. It was their kids or their little brothers that really fell in love with this movie. One of the reasons that it really didn't do so well, and that's been theorized, is that several weeks before this came out, another big film in 1982 came out, and it's one of the biggest films of all time to this day. Steven Spielberg's E.T.
It's understandable. I mean, that's definitely one of my cherished Spielberg films. We've talked about that before on the show, and it was one of those things.
It was more family friendly.
Absolutely. I mean,
because the alien was somebody you rooted for in that.
Completely different film. Yeah.
Right. So,
and now all of a sudden you've got an alien that's trying to basically rip you to shreds.
So the belief was that
not know what the hell it looks like at any given moment. I mean, it always changes its features, and you don't know exactly what's going.
Could be anybody.
Remote, atmosphere. It's just so well done.
Come on, you don't watch E.T. and wonder did he ever put that finger inside Elliot?
Oh yeah, you go there.
Ouch.
He went dark.
No, I absolutely love E.T.
Just the tip, David.
And maybe at the time, America really, really wanted that type of light family fare to their sci-fi.
It was just a timing kind of thing.
Yeah, it really was. Something I mentioned before, the Norwegian dog in the beginning of the film, his name was Jed, and he was not a Siberian Husky. He was a Malamute Grey Wolf mix. If anyone is a fan of X-Files, Season 1, Episode 8 of the X-Files, called Ice, was an homage to this film.
Oh,
interesting.
Cool. In the dog cage, the dog thing puppet was actually created by Stan Winston.
There you go.
So I would love to say
Predator connection.
Right. So I would love to say like, oh man, these great special effects, these Stan Winston effects, these are not Stan Winston effects. Stan Winston did a ton of fucking amazing practical effects throughout the 80s and early 90s. He didn't do this practical effects for this film except for that one creature, the dog creature, which I'm not going to lie is arguably the best looking creature in the entire film.
And why not? What happened again? Why not?
No, it just wasn't him. He was available at the time to do that, but he wasn't available for the whole filming of for doing the special effects for this whole film. So he was just available at that time.
Yeah,
that's kind of.
I believe
that's very different.
I believe the shots for that dog creature were either tainted or destroyed in some way, and they actually had to get
that
Stan
kind of
Winston
stuff
to do them.
Doesn't really happen anymore.
But Stan Winston was friends with John Carpenter, which is why he ended up doing them. And he was also worked for Universal, so at the time, so it just
probably
made
on some
sense.
sort of contract that like. You know, you have to.
You gotta make us a creature.
Anytime we need you, you got to come in and help.
We need a dog creature.
Really, what happened? Was
Still back
Universal.
then, the studios ruled the world.
Was the studio head hit a button and then a Stan Winston beacon appeared in the sky, and
That's exactly what happened.
He was in mid-sex with two prostitutes, and he goes, "I gotta go, honeys. I'm needed."
That's my signal.
That's it. That's your signal. That's your.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just finish up.
So this film, and I think this is pretty obvious. We know that research outposts are a real thing that exists in the real world, and that there are people who go and work in those places, and some of them work in them year round. So it's no surprise that this is one of the few films that actually takes place in Antarctica, and it is 100% loved by the people who work there. Even the British outpost there, every year on June 21st, which is the Midwinter Fest that they have down there, they watch this movie there.
I love that trivia part. Yeah.
So it gets watched every year down there, and it makes sense, right? It makes sense. It touches on especially in the beginning of the film, it touches on a lot of the stuff that they have to deal with.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that I really appreciated about. Well,
the fear of isolation,
flamethrowers,
right? The fear of isolation, the bitter cold. One of the things that I noticed was inaccurate about this film is it is supposed to be getting into the winter months in the film, and they seem to be going through day and night. Well, Antarctica in midwinter would just be night. There would be no day. And even in the beginning of winter, there would only be a couple hours, 2 to 3 hours of light at most. And then it would be mostly darkness. By the time we get to the snowstorm and we get to everything that's really going on, it stays nighttime for the whole rest of the time. But that's one of the things I was like, that might be a little bit inaccurate. It actually wasn't filmed in Antarctica. It was filmed in British Columbia. And a couple years ago, two guys who were huge fans of the films actually hiked up to the part in British Columbia where it was filmed, and they found what is left of Outpost 31. In the same way that huge Star Wars fans went to Tunisia and found Uncle Owen and Aunt Veru's fucking Tatooine bungalow.
There was on that, there was actually like a Kickstarter or something like that where they
save it.
They raised money to save it. And where they went over there and they put it back together and they
and the Tunisian government, who's really getting into tourism now,
you can actually stay at the moisture farm. You can actually it's like a mini boutique type hotel where you can actually stay at the moisture farm in that hole in the ground.
Really?
There. Yeah.
Where? Wow.
In Tunisia, yeah.
Dave is booking his flight right now.
I am not. I have no interest.
Second honeymoon, baby.
On that, the whole idea.
I never had a first honeymoon.
There you go.
The whole island, the planet of Tatooine is actually
the island of Tatooine
is actually named after a town in Tunisia, which is where it was being filmed. Yeah, I didn't get to that spot, but I've been to Tunisia when I was working on the ships.
Oh,
so
cool!
I found that piece of trivia interesting.
Always time for Star Wars trivia. Yeah. One more piece of trivia I wanted to. Oh, do we have? Okay. You want to go? All right.
No, there's no producer here, Mark.
We don't. You're shaking your head. I don't know that.
No, fuck you, Mark. Shut up.
Yeah, you don't get trivia. No
Less
trivia.
is more.
Give me that. Give me that. Anyway, one more piece of trivia I had for this film, I found pretty interesting. Apparently, I don't know exactly who, probably an executive. Someone made John Carpenter actually film a different alternate ending, and of course it's more uplifting and finite. The ending is basically MacReady taking a blood test, and he finds out for sure he is not the Thing. And I think this played on TV, and obviously I'm sure John Carpenter wasn't very happy with that.
It was probably that Universal TV edit that I was talking about before.
Oh, okay. What about Childs? It just completely ignored him because he's black?
Well,
is that why?
Jay, that was not even implied at all. The fact that you brought it up makes
I'm talking about the studio heads. Right? The studio heads.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm actually not sure. That's just what I read about it. But obviously that's not like that's not canon or anything.
Hashtag Jay's racist.
But the point is Jay's racist. So anyway,
that comment is like anti-racist. If anything, come on.
Nah, it's so anti-racist that it is racist.
Yeah. You went full circle on that one.
It wraps around.
Trying to cover up the racism so much.
It wraps around and becomes racist again.
I think that
hashtag double racist.
I think that trivia just shows how scared executives are of any kind of ambiguity,
well, especially in the 80s, my God, definitely.
There's got to be a definite hero, definite, happy ending for this. So.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway.
So let's just get into it. Let's start getting into our final thoughts. I want to start randomly this time. Rob, final thoughts, man.
I love the film.
I mean, I want to know yours because I'll be honest, you are the one that has seen it the most recently.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I love the film. We were talking about this before. They don't make films like this. We talked about this in Jurassic Park, how it was, 30 or so minutes into it before you see, any type of a dinosaur or anything like that. This is the same sort of thing, 30 minutes into the film and is when you start to see the actual thing. There's no, we were talking about as well, that there's no, you're spoon-fed, like movies these days. Oh, this is why we're all here in Antarctica.
You all have to know everything.
We have to know the whole... We have to know the whole reason of why everything's going on in the film.
Which is why I'm opposed to prequels, which is why I'm opposed to the prequel to this movie.
It's true.
Anyway.
We stayed away from it. We didn't talk about the prequel
I really
too
enjoyed
much.
it. I thought it was very well done, very 80s, and, the effects were amazing. They just don't do anything like that anymore.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with Rob. It's one of those things where... it's just not what they make anymore. I mean, it's just one of those things where the special effects were fantastic. Dave, did I fuck you up a little bit?
Just continue your spiel since you jumped in.
I don't even really need to because Rob already hit everything. I love you, Rob. Thanks for talking for me. Thank you.
Mic drop.
Well, do I get to say?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, Dave, they don't make them like they used to.
Yeah, there it is. That's our line.
But seriously, though, this movie is amazing, and the effects are incredible. They are disturbing, but they are incredible, and the whole tone of the movie is just, and the way it builds, and it really builds to those few final scenes where the creature's just wreaking havoc, and it's pretty incredible.
Well, I mean, jumping off of that, do you think it's possible for someone to go back and make films like this again? Because I would argue that even though it's not horror sci-fi, something along the lines of Get Out and Don't Breathe, which came out this year, are horror movies that kind of follow a formula very similar to this, where there is a claustrophobic feel. You are following characters who seem to be going up against supernatural forces, and even though they're not, it might not be exactly like this, but it does fall in line. Those movies do fall in line with it, and they were more critically well received because the critics now are people like us who grew up on these type of films. And I would even say something like It Follows is something that goes along with this.
I think people have a want now to go back to a simpler kind of.
I think we're getting there.
We're so oversaturated with CGI.
I'm very excited for our future.
I'm not saying I want The Thing again.
Right.
What I'm saying is the people making films now are paying homage to things like this.
Right.
I mean, even
Our generation.
Yeah, even which came out this year, which is based on a Stephen King novel and all that shit.
Sure.
But it definitely plays on those horror tropes from the 80s, the things that we grew up on, the things that we love, and it uses those things to play on our expectations, but it also pays homage to them with its creep factor. The only thing that I wish that I could say the only thing I wish I could take from The Thing and bring into these more modern movies is as practical as you possibly fucking can. Yeah. Practical to the point until it's not practical to use practical.
Exactly. And they're walking away from CGI more than anything.
A lot of them are, yeah.
Yeah, because the last, 10 or 20 years, maybe not even 20 years, but like there was a good 10 plus years where they really tried in Hollywood because it's on a cheap. It was easy for them to do the CGI. They thought it was the new thing to do.
It's actually not cheap to do CGI.
It's what they think the audience expects now. You know?
Right, but one of the things that, one of the reasons we were talking about before that the 2011 Thing failed is, first off, it was called The Thing. So a lot of people went into it thinking it was a remake. Technically, it wasn't. It was a prequel. So why would you name your prequel the exact same thing as the original one? Why didn't you call it...
Because of the name. That's why.
Why didn't you call it Who Goes There? A story of the Thing or something like that. Right. Or why wouldn't you call it The Thing from Another World? Like something...
Literally anything except for the Thing.
Literally anything except The Thing. Maybe have The Thing in the title.
The prequel.
Yeah.
Even if we did do that. I mean, then
Before
it's a prequel.
The Thing, The Phantom Menace. Like, whatever. But that might be one of the reasons that's failed. But also because the cult the cult following that The Thing had, we've seen now with Blade Runner 2049 that just because it was cult then and it's still cult now doesn't mean that that's going to speak to audiences. It's because when something is cult, it has a very loud vocal minority. There's a lot of people that I could go to that go to the movies on a weekly basis, and I could say, have you ever seen Blade Runner? And they go, no. But they're still avid movie fans. It's just not something that's on their radar. Yeah. So, of course, The Thing from 2011 failed. It also failed because the majority of the effects in it are CGI. And it really takes away from what it is. Now, that's not... I've actually looked into it. It's actually not, the fault of the directors of the film. What they were doing was they tried their best to use practical effects when possible. And there's several scenes in that film that are practical effects. The autopsy scene is all practical effects. They filmed a lot of the scenes in two different ways, with practical effects, without practical effects. And a lot of the times, because they were going for more bolder effects, a face splitting in half, a human actually getting stuck to the thing like glue and its face just kind of like melting in and assimilating it. It's not stuff that can be done practically with practical effects.
Well, it could be, but...
Right. But the practical effects honestly would have cost more. And let's face it, Universal was not putting big money behind the Thing prequel. I enjoy the Thing prequel for what it is. It's not fantastic. It's not great. It's not this movie. But if you watch it as not a companion and you just watch it as a movie, it's not so bad. But if you watch it as a companion to this and you wind up comparing it, it doesn't fucking even tread water next to it.
Yeah. It honestly almost feels like a fan film.
It honestly does.
In a way.
Which, by the way, we are going to be, all four of us are going to be on Rob's show, Fan Film Boys.
Look at that segue.
So by the time that you're listening to this, Rob's episode should already be out. And you will hear all four of us discussing 2 fan films about The Thing.
Can't get rid of us.
I know. I'm very excited for that one.
Yeah, definitely.
So with all that mentioned, we all know everybody's thoughts. We all know that I love the film. Everyone here loves the film. It's just one of those films that the Super Movie Brothers really can't champion enough. And if you haven't seen it, the fuck is your problem? So Jay, you have a category. What's your category, man, for our next movie cocktail?
Drug/alcohol induced films.
All right, so drug-fueled films. Drug-fueled films. All right, Jay, you're the first one. It's your category. What film are you nominating?
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
All right, very good, very good.
He's giving himself a chance to win this time, huh?
I think so.
No
I thought you were going to go with Anaconda.
Look, I mean, look, there's a lot of good stuff out there.
I just want to remind you.
There really is. And I think this is a fun category.
I think that snake was high during that movie.
That if Jay wins, it'll be his first win. Rob won with Starship Troopers. Mark has won with Howard the Duck. And I have won 3 times.
I'm very proud of my one win with Howard the Duck.
True. But the fact is, both of you are better than Jay.
Basically,
Dave knows the people. I don't.
I'm not playing for people, man. I'm playing for movies I love. The fact is,
I'm a unicorn.
More people agree with me than agree with you. Yeah, you're a unicorn, which is why we've all realized you're a replicant.
I don't mind. I'm a unicorn replicant. Yes.
So, Rob, what is your film to throw up for nomination?
I'm going English. I'm going Trainspotting.
Trainspotting. All right.
Solid choice.
Just make sure no one who watches Trainspotting watches T2 Trainspotting 2.
Oh God, don't
watch
it.
That was kind of decent. No,
it was not.
No.
Okay.
Mark,
I'm gonna go with Half Baked.
I fucking like that.
Oh, it's a wild card.
It's a different one for us.
Good choice.
You know, we're all thinking dark.
Yeah.
Like alcohol, drug movies.
Just a weed
not
movie.
that one.
What is it? March? April? It's August. Wow, man. August.
So that's my pick.
I'm going. I think mine's a little bit different than everyone's. I feel like everyone's has a lot of fun in it. I'm not sure if my movie has a lot of fun, but it's a movie that I absolutely love, and it's from a director who just had a huge hit movie this year with Logan. I'm talking about James Mangold's Walk the Line. Because you're mine, I walk the line.
Interesting.
And that's valid. Yeah, that's a valid movie because obviously, man, he was goddamn. I mean, even throughout the whole movie, he was fucked up.
He's fucked up. He's fucked up on black jackets the whole time. Now, I mean, I could have gone a lot of ways. I could have went with Natural Born Killers.
Oh, you could go with.
I could have went with Requiem for a Dream, and I know Requiem for a Dream probably would have won this category. Here's the reason I don't want to watch Requiem for a Dream.
I don't think it would.
I don't want to go through that again.
No, exactly.
I don't want to feel that dirty ever again. I don't want to watch Requiem for a Dream again. I
completely understand that, but I think a lot of people want to actually just have us dissect certain movies that are,
fun,
a genre
that they want to watch.
That we bring up that is actually fun to talk about. Requiem for a Dream. Everybody knows what the hell happened. Everybody knows they're going to experience.
I just want to cut together a bunch of intros with Johnny Cash music. Are you kidding me? Fucking love Johnny Cash. I love Johnny Cash, and not in that I'm a weird hipster way. And
but
I like
really,
to listen
Fear
to
and
what's
Loathing in Las Vegas is going to win this time. Come on.
I don't know, man.
Half Baked, man.
Half Baked has a smart Trainspotting.
Actually, Mark's put. Oh my God, that was a smart choice.
So that poll,
but no, I like all these entries. They're really good, and obviously, Trainspotting is a fucking classic. Dave and I both love that movie.
I do love that movie, especially the poop scene in the very beginning. But yeah, I went with my heart this time. I know Walk the Line's not going to win, and that's okay. I don't need to win every category.
Try not to win this time.
No, honestly, a lot of drug-fueled movies are depressing, or I just don't like them. I could have went with Blow, but honestly, and I've said this 100 times, I hate Blow. Jay knows I fucking hate Blow. I don't like it.
You could have done Goodfellas, I guess, technically.
Oh, by the end,
the last half of it, or last quarter, I guess.
You see the helicopter? It's going to be fucking DEA, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that poll is going to go up just sometime after this episode goes up. So make sure you're following Super Movie Bros on Twitter at Super Movie Pod so that you can vote and have your say in the film that we do on our next Movie Cocktail podcast. I want to thank everybody for listening. You can follow Jay by going on to Facebook and checking out Super Movie Bros podcast on there. Jay runs our Facebook. I run the Twitter. If you're also interested in what beers we are drinking, you can also, Jay runs our Untapped on the Untapped app. So make sure you search for Super Movie Bros on the Untapped app. And we will also have a beer that we're putting up there from our Fan Film Boys that we're going to be doing after recording this one. So make sure that you're checking out Fan Film Boys after you're listening to your movie cocktails, because Rob, who runs the show over there, has been tailoring all of his fan films to have something to do with our movie cocktails, which I think is brilliant and just beautiful marriage.
Oh,
it is.
I do.
So Rob, go ahead. Where can everybody listen to Fan Film Boys and find all that shit?
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play. We're Fan Film Boys, and that's boys with a Z. So that's the website, www.fanfilmboys.com. We are on Facebook at Fan Film Boys, Twitter, Fan Film Boys Pod, and starting to put a lot more on all of them now, including Instagram, putting some stuff up there. So I try to talk a lot more about what's going on in the world of fan films, new fan films that are coming out, reviewing old ones, that sort of stuff.
And even though it'll be out before this episode actually comes out, you just did an interview with one of the filmmakers that you and I talked about last time.
Yeah, actually, we did Nexus Recursion,
which is a Blade Runner.
A Blade Runner fan film. And I was lucky enough to talk with the writer, the director, and the main actress of that. So I do have that coming out very, very soon. It's probably already out by the time this obviously the podcast is out.
Very cool.
But they talk a lot about the fan film, about the process of making the film, what went into it, and also some things that we missed when we were talking about the film. So I found that very interesting. So I hope you'll all check that out as well.
Perfect. And Mark, what do you got going on?
Well, you can find me as always at markdickerson.com. I make movies and stuff.
I make movies and stuff.
Yep.
He does. He has 2 feature films and a bunch of short films. All of them are worth your time. Definitely go check them out.
Thank you, Dave.
And of course, me and Jay and everything the Super Movie Brothers does is part of a network. It's part of the Podfix network. So if you enjoy our show and you want to check out other shows that are like ours, just guys who watch movies, have a lot of fun, drink, definitely check out the other podcasts that are a part of the Podfix network. You can check it out at www.podfixnetwork.com. Thanks a lot for listening. Make sure you drink that cocktail that we make for this, because a lot of time goes into making those cocktails.
It's pretty damn good.
The ones I make, I'm extremely proud of. And not just because I'm the one making them, because I actually know what goes into making them. It takes time and an entire bottle of gin to get this recipe right. And as my wife told me, that bottle of gin was $35. And I was like, wow, you spent way too much on us, honey. You're too kind.
Thank you, Lauren.
So thanks a lot for listening. Have a great night. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.